Behind me is a 2.3% range Bitcoin is in right now in every single item that Bitcoin price is interacting with. Between these lines, Bitcoin really doesn't do anything special. At these lines that I have very clearly labeled, Bitcoin price will either hesitate, bump its head, seek for higher lows, or perhaps a lower low, or seek to get above one of these levels and use it as support before legging up to the next one. The only item on here that price is interacting with that you can't see is the daily 10 EMA. Here's the significance of this 2.3% range, as you can see. Once Bitcoin either drops below here and uses this line as resistance, then takes out its punch low, the low it makes as it initially crosses below here, or this line right here, if Bitcoin goes above it, uses it as support and takes out its punch high, the high it makes when it gets above, that is when volatility is going to expand. And that is the moment where you have an instant edge that Bitcoin will do something outside of this small range. But within the range, the importance is this is fairly playable. If you're using from a higher leverage perspective, I don't recommend that to everybody. There's not a lot to do unless you're playing the micro time frames. But if you are, here's everything that's touching Bitcoin besides the daily 10 EMA. So let's go in and check out what Bitcoin's doing inside and where I think it's going to go once it leaves this little channel that it's playing in. You ready? I have this here so you can see it's a pretty small range. And in general terms, if you are not accustomed to higher leverage plays, it's best just not to do anything right now. I'm serious, because like I said earlier, until Bitcoin is below here, use it as support and then legs down. It's not going to move much enough for lower leverage plays. You're literally just going to sit on a position that goes in profit, out of profit, in profit, out of profit, paying funding fees, maybe getting paid for, hodling your position, but it's just nothing's going to happen. I want to make that very, very clear. Now, the one thing that is not on here that price is immediately interacting with is the daily 10 EMA. And I'm going to go to the 1 minute chart to show you that that is accurate. See? Actually, hey, that was perfect timing. Look at that. Bitcoin just comes right up to it, gets rejected. It just plays with it perfectly. And it's playing with, what is this, the weekly open? Did the week just turn green for a hot second? Nope, that was the daily open. So the daily candle right there. So you have two areas of interest right here. This is going to be an interesting one. The daily candle and the daily 10 are about at the same area. But if we zoom in here, you can see that price, truly is really interacting with this. I gave a short alert and asked my VIPs to put their stop and profit after this candle right here. We had been planning the second rejection after a higher low was formed back here. And I made a drawing showing two different rejections. Wait for the second one. I guess I could go ahead and pull it up here. Where's she be? Check this out. There we go. Boom. So I drew it over here when Bitcoin made its current spike high. And I drew and I let them know, hey, wait for, see how it says rejection down here of the daily 10 EMA? See that? All right. And then look what happened. Not bad, huh? So I drew that about right here. Or here. Can't remember which candle, but it was after the spike high. Second rejection. Actually, it would have been this one right here. Second rejection. But this one actually worked out a little bit better. All right, so it's still just getting rejected. I was anticipating rejections from here. This is a big, big, big item in play. Now, what you can expect out of Bitcoin is this. Over the weekend, it's likely not going to do anything magic, such as blast through it without using this as support until this purple line is hit. I'm telling you, it's very unlikely. Okay, the way that Bitcoin interacts with this line is going to be pretty damn predictable until this purple line, which is when the new weekly candle opens and the new the Monday candle opens. But until then, the way Bitcoin price will interact with this orange line and the daily candle open, it'll need to get above it and use it as support, then take out its punch high it makes as it gets above there. I'll go to the 5 minute candle so we can see this the candles a little bit better. And the punch high means simply as it gets above, it makes a high, comes back down, use it as support, and once it takes out that high, then that's when it's going to, you have an edge to the upside, at least for a shelf life of a couple hours. Trade in that direction. Making sense there? All right, but when this purple line hits, that's when traditional market futures and all that stuff can just whip Bitcoin price in any direction, and it will behave a little bit differently. It'll still interact with these levels. So for example, if Bitcoin comes down and spikes really quickly to this micro support, which is all this is doing, Bitcoin price is just coming down to check this over and over and over around 19.1, just a little bit lower than 19.1. But once this happens, any of these items, Bitcoin could splash through it. It can dive through it, and you're gonna get. You're likely going to be playing with the more extremes of this 2.3% range once this happens. I would trust the middle levels a little less and trust these outside levels, this one and this one, a little more. Does that make sense? Rock and roll. So that is pretty much. Oh, and the daily 21 is right here. I guess I can go ahead and label those bad boys. Boom. If you want to layer on something additional that Bitcoin price honestly really is interacting with quite heavily is this. I'm going to go to the 1 hour chart to show you this. There we go. So this bottom area started coming into effect around September 19th. It connects a bunch of price activity down here, a lot of spike lows, and then spike highs from October 4th and 5th. Bitcoin price is interacting with this, forming a miniature triangle, which is definitely in the middle of a larger triangle. So a breakout of this area is maybe not going to be the biggest deal, and it could be a fake out. It could be breaking out the wrong way. So break out of the miniature triangle before the wrong way, before then coming back into the larger triangle, and then breaking the other way out of the larger triangle. But if you want to throw these on, price is sort of interacting with these fairly heavily, but for now, I'm going to take those off. I'm mostly just dealing with the horizontals, so we can go ahead and make those invisible one more time. But if you put all that on your chart, I promise you that you're going to have a handle and understand why does Bitcoin price only hesitate at these areas? Why is it interacting? These are all the levels until it breaks out. Now, let's go ahead and go to the weekly chart so we can get a bigger perspective on continuation the next week, because continuation, it's pretty much got to happen within the next, I would say before the middle of the second week of November, Bitcoin is going to start accelerating, and it could happen next week. So let's go ahead and take a look to be prepared what we're going to see next week if that starts happening, and what breaking out of this 2.3% range is going to look like on the larger scale. So most of what I say will involve getting above the October candle open or going below 18,950, but we're going to be looking at it on a larger candle time frame, so it's going to look different. But zoomed in with a microscope, this is what it looks like. All right, and having this on your chart is going to be very, very helpful. All right, so let's dive into the bigger time frames. Follow me on Twitter, Costas Verdes with the number 2 afterward. I post some bomb charts of crypto, altcoins, and Bitcoin and Ethereum alike. Links to the Discord and the community and the visual instructions on how to join the community in the description section of all my videos. And if online communities are not your thing, go ahead and click the join button that's right beside the subscribe button, and a 90-second video will pop up showing you what those tiers offer you. All right, now let's go to a cleaner Bitcoin chart and let's start diving into some things we're going to look at on some larger candles. Make some simple observations. There we go. So on the daily scale, we have right now the daily 21 and the daily 10 both smashed together. I'll take off price. They're smashed together going sideways. So what this means is when larger time frame EMAs and just price itself has been going sideways without volatility for a lot longer, if you are accustomed to either watching an analyst who uses anything that oscillates, a MACD, stochastic RSI, whatever, when this happens on mid-term timeframes like the daily, which these are daily EMAs, they're smashed together, and lower, that means on those timeframes, oscillator tools aren't going to work. And really, EMA crosses aren't going to work really either. Because, they've already been attempting to cross. Look back here, look back here. It's not the greatest signal. What is a good signal is when small candles can get above here, use it as support, then take out its punch high. So it's going to be candle structure, smaller time frame candles, which have to initiate or stimulate a threshold of movement to the higher time frames, because the higher time frames themselves they're smashed together. Does that make sense? So anything oscillator, it's pretty much going to be near worthless. EMA crosses, not the biggest deal. It's going to be small candles staying on top of them from a higher low structure and higher high structure, right? And the oscillator tools that you might use, the larger time frames like 2-day and weekly and above, they move a lot more slowly. Those signals are, any signals that you see are probably active, but it's a question of will they fire off in 2 weeks or not? And the only way to really tell if you're seeing any signals on anything oscillating is the small time frames interacting with, the levels that I showed you on this chart. It's really down to that. So it's important when you're doing, technical analysis on price and what is in play, like what is going to move price. Right now, I promise you, it is simply this little range and the small time frames and all the stuff I showed you. And what's going to happen here is once that 2.3% range is broken and used as resistance and used as support, whichever way it breaks, that is going to invite like attracting mosquitoes or attracting flies. It's going to attract buyers or sellers. So buyers to the upside, sellers to the upside, and price should move a lot more. Does that make sense? So I'm trying to show you the stuff that we usually use, or maybe you usually use. They're going to be fairly worthless if it's oscillator or EMA based inside of this 2.3% range, unless you're looking at it with specifically candle structure on the small, like 5 minute, maybe 1 hour and below. Making sense? All right, so let's put price back on. I'm going to go to, so anytime that price is smashed, interestingly enough, the daily open candles get a lot of activity because here's why. Some of the most important lines you can play with during very low volatility are the opens of dailies, weeklies, and monthlies, because that's where the fight is. Because the bulls aren't winning anything at all on a red candle, really. Does that make sense? So until the bulls can make this green, they are in losing position. Therefore, every day that there is a sideways compressed movement, this is always a line in play every time, and it resets at 8 p.m. New York every day. It's always a fight, unless the candle's really big and it's separated far away. But all these candles are pretty compressed, so every single time, just a quick trick for you. So at 8 p.m., the line that I had that showed daily open, it's going to be a new line. So draw it until this range is broken. It's going to help you drastically. That is a very valuable tip, I promise, particularly in low volatility areas. All right, so right now, the bears are winning this day. All right, here we go. But check this out. Now on the weekly, it looks kind of like a tie. From the low and the high, price is roughly in the middle, although it is a red candle. The bear's technically in control, but we already had this marked off on the small candles. But just so you can take a look on, and let me take these EMAs off. Who is winning this battle right here? The bears are definitely, a little bit more in control. But once this major triangle is broken, that is going to create incentive for the current bears that are in control to stop being sellers and to become buyers. That could initiate a move up to the origin line here, and that might be sitting closer to 23K by this point. Yeah, so a break to the upside, it could easily have a target. So next week of almost 22.5. If it were to happen the week after, which is within the time frames that I've been suspecting, so if it's 2 weeks out, we're sitting closer to 23K, which would take out the recent spike high that we have. All right, so this would be the larger extent of the move, and that's where I would expect the move to very extremely likely to slow down, and it would need to form a higher low before it would try to get out of here. Does that make sense? This is an origin line. It's the most macro type of line possible within Bitcoin history because it goes back to the origin of price. Oh, and if you're new to my channel, I'll zoom out just so you can see this. You won't see this anywhere else on crypto YouTube because I made these lines and no one else uses them. And that's what we're looking. That's what we're looking at. We are dealing right now with the blue line, which on this weekly chart is a little off here on the other side. But we are dealing with that blue line, which has been interacted with back way when it was 2012. All right, so this line has not been touched since 2012, and look where Bitcoin is for macro perspective. Look where it is right now. It's below it. It's below it. So if it's really never been below this line, it might want to come up and use it as resistance after it's falling halfway through this line here and this line down here. A break to the downside in 1 or 2 weeks. Since Bitcoin has gone sideways so long, right? What I envision happening is if we get a breakdown is it's going to hit this here. Let me make this line a little bit more visible. There we go. It's going to most likely hit this line and then come back up to the bottom of the triangle. Use it as resistance, and what will happen? So I don't know if you've seen my KDA analyses, but this would be similar to Kadena price. It would fall out of one triangle, fall into another because an origin line, and hit that triangle and go sideways even longer. So a breakdown, it might not get super volatility for a while. All right, so watch out for that, because you might be watching other folks who don't have origin lines, because I'm the only one who has it. It could easily spike right back up into this, or to the bottom of this triangle, and go sideways for another 2 to 3 weeks. So let me show you what that triangle looks like. And I anticipated this happening on another altcoin called Kadena, and it's exactly what happened. It's literally in this second triangle right here. And Bitcoin could do the same thing. But if Bitcoin over the next couple weeks falls below this triangle that probably everybody's talking about, because I mean that's what price hasn't, it's been in a 140-day consolidation triangle essentially. So it's pretty much everything to look at right now. If price goes below this origin line, spikes down, well, the similar thing. It's probably going to spike back up and want to touch it and then head back down. Making sense there? There are some cases, though, what is a little bit less probable. Let me go to a smaller time frame here. What's a little less probable is sometimes Bitcoin, when it goes below an origin line, it will sometimes crash through and go straight to the next one. Not within 1 hour necessarily, but over time, and it just breaks through, doesn't use it as resistance, and gets to the next one quickly. So if that were to happen, and I mean, that happens probably, I don't know if it's a third or 40% of the time, but it's a fairly decent sized double-digit number, but it's definitely less than half the time on these origin lines. But over time, if this were to break and it goes below this origin line, I mean, this is an ascending area. You know, if it doesn't hit it till like December 1st or so, it's going to be about 13K. But if this line is hit in November, it's going to be in the 12s. Are we making sense? And I'm telling you, these lines work. These lines work very, very, very well. All right? That's what we're looking at. So these are the targets for a breakdown. I showed you targets for a breakout. And we already zoomed in at the beginning of this to show you the micro timeframes of what this looks like, what is price is interacting here, and what will initiate a move up to here or initiate a move down to this origin line here with this next triangle. But if you are a person who is really wanting a big flushing downside move, just realize that, I mean, Bitcoin's got to get below this first, and man, you might get really excited about a big short, like one you've been waiting on forever, and you could get really disappointed if you're not aware of this line. Because it could come right back up to the point where you shorted it, play around there for another 2 weeks, and then you're out of your position when you had a big anticipation. Does that make sense? So everything in this video should keep you both safe and knowledgeable of what is moving price from a pinball bumper perspective. I hope this was helpful. Go ahead and click this link right here if you want to jump onto my live stream where you can see Bitcoin interacting with the levels I showed you here today. And then click this video right here if you want to see, or this playlist, if you want to see the most important videos I've ever made in crypto. You just got Timified Worldwide.